In this section, we are going to talk about how can we actually explore in our environment, as you were previously seen in mondial3d.stdio, that we are enabled to actually explore in our environment. And this can be actually approached by using something called controls, or as you can see here, OrbitControls. And there is a different name called OrbitControls, OrbitControllers, and different type. Actually, by using the OrbitControls, you can actually manage your orbit or your environment. And for the first step, you need to import the orbit controllers from the specific module that are available in your documentations. And let me check that I imported correctly by clicking on that. And as you can see here, there is a orbit controls that we are imported from OrbitControl.js, which is the main file that have the functionality and the modules and the parameter that we are going to use in these sections. And for example, to double check that you are imported correctly, you can actually click on the files, and if it's redirected you to the main file, it is okay. It means that you're imported correctly. And as you can see here, there is an orbit control that extended from event dispatcher and constructors. There's a constructor that different parameters were initialized even by you or even by the coder that code this class. As you can see here, there is a mean zoom value that initialized to be 0 if that's not provided. And based on your application, you can actually double check these parts and see which parameters is best suited for you. So let's discuss the example that provided in the documentations. And there is a renderer, WebGL renderer, we set size. We actually discussed this in the previous sections. And there is a camera, and in here actually there is a controls. As you can see here, we pass two parameters, which first is the camera and the renderer. And afterwards, actually, for this part, for using the orbit control, we need to use the animations to see the actual changes that happening in our environment. So let me copy this part and add it after the light section that we discussed in the previous video. And there is a camera.positions.sets, which we don't need it, and there is a control update. Actually, in this line of the code, after it's actually define the controls, it will, for the first time, it will update the content of the orbit controls, which we pass to render, which we pass the camera and the render element. And as you can see here, basically the functionality is, for example, by the movement of you in the environment, there is a camera position changes. So we actually retrieve these changes to the orbit control, and the control each times will update this value, and you can see constantly that your windows is changing. And as you can see here, we need to actually call the controls update in the animation function that we defined before. They are just using Three.js for specific parts. We can use a query selector to get that specific part and actually replace it by the render.dom elements. So you can see here that in our parts, which are WebGL container, we retrieved that specific parts, and let me check the documentations, and actually it should be on creating scenes. Let me check. And there is no such thing in the documentation. As you can see here, when we are refreshing our page, we are enabled to actually navigate and explore in our environment. There are two types of things that we have to consider. That first of all, the materials in here is one way. For example, when you are going inside the spheres, you cannot actually see the spheres anymore. And also, there is a point that we can make these materials two ways. And another point is that the orbit controls have a different model, and that we can explore in Three.js documentation. If you search for controls, there are different type of controls, such as the drag control and orbit controls, and actually the orbit controls is the most important one. And now we are going to actually, first of all, we are going to see an examples of orbit controls, and we are going to explore in different properties, different features that orbit controls have. When you click on the examples, the Three.js redirect you to the one of the examples, which are limited by the rotations and zoom in and zoom out. What's the main point of doing this is actually controlling the users in some cases that, for example, they are not enabled zoom out or zoom in unlimitedly. So by initializing these features, these properties, we can actually control the workflow of different orbit. As you can see here, these examples can be shown by different properties. So there are multiple features here, multiple properties that you can explore by yourself, but now I'm going to cover the most important ones, which one of them is enable zoom, which gives us the possibilities, gives us the power to enable or disable zooming of the camera, which will be used in some cases in programming. So we are going to copy these parts and this enable zoom, and then now we are going to apply it in our control object. As you can see here, we type control.enable zoom equal to false, and when we save and refresh our page, now we are not enabled to zoom in or zoom out, just the rotation. Another important feature is max distance, and it gives us the opportunities, it gives us the power to control the perspective camera, that how much the camera can be actually far and go far enough from the object, from the scene. And the maximum polar angle will limit us in such a way that how much we are going to actually navigate, how much actually we are going to able to rotate in this environment. As you can see here, I put the value, and we are now actually limiting ourselves by a little bit value. Let me double check the value. actually it should be the, I'm sorry, I have to remove the minus sign. And when we are refreshing our page, as you can see here, now we are limiting ourselves, or I should better said, we are limiting the users to actually have a different, have a limited angle. And you can actually test different property by yourself. And you can, as you can see here in the documentation, you can actually change the default value of different properties. And for example, in max distance, it goes to infinity in the default value. But when we are changing these values, for example, let me actually make it 3 and refresh the page. I think the value is really, for example, is 30 is enough. And if we actually reload our page, it can actually, the max distance that camera perspective can go for is 30 units. And as you can see here, you can rotate, you can actually fix these values so the user goes in the ways that you want.